Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Shawn Walchef, founder of Cali BBQ and Cali BBQ Media. We are recording from the Restaurant Transformation Tour in Austin, Texas at the JW Marriott. This has become an incredible event. It's a sold-out event, Restaurant 365. I have Leon Graves. He is the Senior Solutions HR Manager for Restaurant 365.
Yes, absolutely.
Technically?
Yeah, so I'm the Senior Manager for Restaurant 365 HR, so that's all of our HR solutions.
Okay, so big title.
It's a big title.
It's a big title.
Yeah,
so
right.
you don't do HR for Restaurant 365. You do it on behalf of restaurant clients.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Right. It sounds a lot fancier than it is. I just want to be clear about that. But yeah, big title. Here we go.
Well, tell me about what is it? What do you do? How do you help?
All right. So what I do specifically is I'm responsible for making sure that the implementations on Restaurant 365 HR products are smooth and high quality. We focus a lot on edification too. So it's not just, hey, here's the solution, here's how you use it, here's the nuts and bolts. But, you know, when you're looking at, like, let's say a Restaurant 365 hire implementation, we want to look at the materials that you're using. We want to look at the job templates that you're presenting and making sure that we want all of our Restaurant 365 clients to be as competitive as they possibly can be. So it's part implementation, but it's also, hey, here's best practices. Let's work on making you the best that you possibly can be.
So give us a scope of what's the current status quo of what you see current clients coming in with their HR. And when you say HR solutions, what specifically are we talking about?
So specifically what I work with is the onboarding side,
Okay.
right? So Restaurant 365 Hire. And then we also have Employee Navigator. We use an integration with Employee Navigator. That's benefits administration. And then we have a great partnership with Mineral, and that's going to be an HR repository. So
Okay.
the goal is basically to create a solution stack, right? We have an ERP, right? But we're emulating
What's
what a
an
lot
ERP?
of people. So that's an enterprise resource platform. Okay. And so basically what that means is we're connecting all the solutions together, right? So you talked recently, you just said the status quo, right?
Yes.
What do I see in the status quo in terms of the HR world? Okay. And really the status quo for me breaks down into two camps. The first one is you've got the analog restaurant, right? And what does that mean? They're not using any solutions.
Yes.
Okay. So it's manual entry, and that doesn't matter whether it's paper, right? Or a manila folder, or however you're trapping it.
Time clock?
Right. Whatever that is, or an Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
But analog is one camp. The other camp is having a lot of solutions, right? Because we've had digital solutions now available for restaurants for a long time. So what can happen is, let's say you start with a digital scheduler. Your first solution, you're going to get a lot of gains from, right? And then that makes you go, okay, this is awesome. And you start getting individual solutions for each problem or each department that you have, right? So for me, the status quo is really those two camps largely, right? That's what we're seeing in general.
And when you look at the hiring process, how much time does it take for a typical restaurant employee to be onboarded into a brand?
So that is going to range pretty wildly, right? Because if we're talking about if you're a quick serve restaurant, there may be less training. There may be less involved. If you're a fine dining, right, and we're talking about it's got 14 service steps that you need to know, then it's going to really extend that time, right? But what we do see in terms of averages is how much time it takes to actually process applicants, to look for work and those kind of things, right? And that average is about 10 hours a week that managers are spending.
That's without Restaurant 365?
That's without Restaurant 365.
Okay, what do you guys do to cut that 10 hours down?
Well, so again, I think anytime we're talking about the amount of time that you're spending with hiring, I grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of money. And when we had food, we used every last bit of it, right? But it took a lot of effort. And there was one thing in particular, my mom, she still has some kind of magical skill. She can get all the peanut butter out of a jar, right? Like completely out of a jar. Okay. I still don't know how she does it, but she does it. When I think about restaurant hiring and we talk about how long it's taking, the primary issue is there's just less peanut butter in the jar. right? There's just less and less people looking for restaurant work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's incredibly demanding. It's demanding because restaurants are competing with each other over a very small number of applicants. And because you have to then do more and more creative things, right? And I think back to my hiring, when I was doing hiring 15 years ago or 10 years ago in the restaurant industry, I could just go up to the host stand, right? 15 years ago, grab the blue folder that was at the host stand, open it up. Here was my paper applications. I'd make a few phone calls. I was good to go.
Yep.
Right. And half the time I didn't even have to do that because I had 2 different interview times, open interviews, and they would walk in the door. Hey, I'm looking for a job. Because at that time, restaurant work was the work, right? When I was growing up, what you wanted to be was a bartender, right? You wanted to be the bartender. A, you were cool, but B, you made significantly more money, right? So when we think about why it's taking so long, it's just because there's less and less people, and you have to do more and more steps to be able to reach those people, right? So that's why it's taking so much time. And each one of these steps that you add on, it's like I said, I used to just have to use paper applications. Then when that dried up, the next year I had to start using Craigslist. And the year after that wasn't enough. I had to start using Indeed. And then after that, I had to use ZipRecruiter and then Poached. And then I was going to culinary schools. And then, right? Like I was a couple of days away from spinning signs on the corner myself, right? Like whatever.
I spin signs.
Right. I love it.
I just put them on TikTok and Instagram.
Exactly. Love it. Okay, great.
It's not for the cars driving by. It's for the internet.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
But that to me is why it's taking so much time. And so as you have these tasks that you can automate, that's why so much of the digitization process is so important, is because every single year it gets harder.
Yeah.
Every single year it gets harder. So you have to have the tools to automate, but you also need to make good decisions with how you're spending your time, right? So that is really how Restaurant 365 can step in and help, is in that regard. Give you good tools and show you how to get real-time feedback so you can make better decisions.
One of my favorite books is a book by Dan Heath and Chip Heath, and it's called The Power of Moments. And in that book specifically, they lay out an onboarding process. And when we think of our first day on the job, it doesn't matter what job, what industry you're in, but when you think specifically of the restaurant process, what are some things that restaurant owners can do? And obviously digitization is one of them, but what are some things that they can do to stand out, to make that a memorable first day, first touch point that can really truly make an impact for the brand? The results are in. National Restaurant Association show. Kyle and Sarah and myself, we were at the DAVO sales tax booth and we were polling restaurant owners on the floor. This was a very unscientific poll, but the results are resounding. Restaurant owners do not like sales tax. Nobody likes sales tax. Doesn't matter what business owner you are, small business, big business. DAVO automates the sales tax process. We are so grateful that DAVO is the sponsor of this show. They automate sales tax at our Cali barbecue restaurants. It is $50 a month. It integrates with all the major point of sale partners, including Toast. So if you want to sleep at night, if you want to not worry about sales tax, go to DAVO, check them out, DAVO Sales Tax. Let us know how they're helping automate your sales tax in your restaurant so that we can share your DAVO story on digital hospitality.
So I love that you said that, because for me, when we start talking about speed, I love NASCAR. Okay?
Yes.
But I don't care about the cars driving around in circles. I don't care about it at all. What makes me excited is the pit stops, right? Because I've had my tires rotated, okay? And it took 2.5 hours. And when you see something like that happen in 15 seconds, right? And you go, well, how did that happen? Is it that they tried really hard or whatever, right? But they have a system. But the goal for us is not just speed. The goal is to return to what restaurants do best, which is create relationships, have missions, create humanity. And so with onboarding, it's so easy to get lost in the process that we lose sight of the fact that this is the first impression. This is the first date. This is the first opportunity that you have to connect with someone. And if you are bogged down by all the additional steps, if you are spending 15 hours in an office and stressed out because you got to staple all of your orientation packets and you're just trying to get through the motions, you don't make that connection.
I think a bunch of people listening just got PTSD trying to
Right.
staple orientation.
Right,
packets.
exactly.
That was me. That was 100%,
right. Or
100%
your
me.
toner goes out or whatever it is, right? Like just absolute horrible.
Yeah.
But again,
well, it's not only that, it's just like how far we've come. I mean, at least just for us in the last 15 years of having paper onboarding to a digital onboarding, where now those things are in the cloud. It's not something where it's like a printed piece of paper that you're like, what menu is this?
Exactly.
We updated this menu 3 months ago.
Right.
How can this possibly be in the training material? We laugh about it, but it's true. And it's happening all across the world in restaurants all over the world.
Right. I mean, I think my favorite was like the orientation packet where you had your sommelier who hasn't worked for the company in 6 months, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And you have to like give the orientation and go, but ignore that.
Yeah.
That person's not here anymore. Oh yeah, that policy, we've changed that. So just don't
worry about that.
Don't worry about that. But now when you have something like that, again, it's the maintenance. It's we fall to the level of our systems,
Yep.
right? Because if we want to be able to focus on the humanity, if we want to make an impression, we have to have all of these other things happening in the background, automated and really moving so we can focus on what matters.
Tell me about the scheduling platform.
So again, I think if anyone is not using a digital scheduler, stop what you're doing and go get a digital scheduler, because there are so many reasons why you have to be able to get actionable feedback. Mm-hmm. As someone who I've done schedules with pencil, right? I've done schedules in an Excel sheet. You had your templates that you would, copy and paste and put on your cork board so that the line cooks could see it, right? Like we knew what that was, but you're not getting the actionable information to tell you, okay, I made this schedule. How closely did people actually adhere to it?
Sure.
And if you're paying a line cook $18 an hour, and he or she milks the clock for 6 or 7 minutes after every shift, that's a major problem.
Sure.
Right? You multiply that by 10 or 15 people, you have a serious problem, right? The other thing that you can't see in an analog situation is what I call the Goldilocks paradox, right? You need to have the right amount of people so you can give excellent service, but you can't be in a situation that you don't have customers and you have people standing around. And at this point, you're paying people so much in comparison to a couple years ago.
Sure.
It'll pull you in the red one bad shift, right?
Yeah.
So if you're using a digital solution that's giving you feedback, right? And that's one of the great things about the smart ops, about Restaurant 365 scheduling, is that they provide that feedback so that through iteration, you can really start developing an optimal schedule and then get the slight, again, NASCAR nuances to go, okay, I can bring in the host at 7:30 instead of 7. And that 30 minutes multiplied by 52 weeks, right? 7 shifts, 52, that's a major amount of savings, right? So that to me is why you have to be using a digital scheduling. You just have to. You have to.
How do you make payroll pleasurable versus a pain?
Okay, so I think payroll is always a pain. Okay, like there's money
it's
on.
hard.
There's
Yes,
money.
It's correct.
Right. Any other solution, any other department, you can make a mistake and you don't have people not being able to pay their rent.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that payroll is always going to be a very demanding solution no matter what. But when we talk about payroll, I talked about like this length of time, the amount of effort that we're having to spend to like get the very last ounce of peanut butter out of the jar, to like deal with the scarcity. we aren't talking enough about how do you get more peanut butter in the jar? How do we get more people looking for restaurant work? How do we go back to when I was a kid and the ideal job was working at restaurants, right? Because restaurants have so much to offer. But the question becomes, where did they go? Why is it different now? And obviously, it's the gig economy, okay? And what are the benefits that drew them away? Well, the first one is flexibility of schedule.
Yep.
You can get in your car, turn on your Uber app, work, stop work whenever you want. Now, we don't have a Restaurant 365 cyborg yet, okay?
Not yet.
Soon we will, okay, right?
Yeah. Tell Tony,
All right.
Tony and Morgan to get on
Right.
it.
I'll let Tony know, we'll work it, okay? But
is it on the roadmap?
yeah, I hope so, okay?
We'll find out.
I'm excited.
We'll let you guys know.
The Terminator of, cyborg grill cooking.
Yeah.
But until we have more advancements, we really can't address that, not at the same level. But when we're talking about the frequency of payment, because that's the second item, right? People can go work at the gig economy. You can go do an Uber shift and get paid immediately.
Yep.
Okay. We have so many restaurants that are still doing a bi-weekly payroll.
It's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about getting more peanut butter in the jar, more people looking for restaurant work, we have to go and genuinely compete with the gig economy. We know we can't do it with flexibility. We have to do it with payment. So I think for me, and this really is a mission, and it's a hard mission. Like you started off saying, how do we make it less painful? Well, I don't have that answer necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that what I'm really proud of Restaurant 365 for getting in their arena in terms of the payroll side, because it is so hard.
Yeah.
Because it's so demanding. And what we're trying to do is not just, hey, here's a payroll solution, but like for someone who processed payroll for restaurants, there's so many nuances to paying restaurants. There's so much there. You need something that's restaurant specific, right? You need something there. You also need something that connects, and that's something that we discuss a lot. Like when we talk about what Restaurant 365, when I came from the restaurant industry and I came to Restaurant 365, I joined this team genuinely because I could not see a future doing what I was doing in restaurants in terms of just bandwidth. I had gotten to a point where I was working 80 hours a week, 7 days a week. It was so overwhelming. And I knew that there had to be another answer. We have to have restaurants. We have to have this thing. But what do we do? And it's really that we connect. Okay. So when we, again, hearkening back to this secondary status quo, having too many solutions, the difficulty is we know that payroll is an accounting function, right? But if they're in two different databases, if they're two different solutions, you're having to do all kinds of manual journal entries. You're having to do all kinds of stuff to rectify. So the goal is get them as close as possible, right? That's a major reason why Restaurant 365, like I said, I'm proud of them going into this area. I'm proud to be a part of this, endeavor. But that's what the goal is. And then the last item is really a mission, which is how do we learn to pay people faster? And that's Restaurant 365 Pay, right? Like we have to get to a place that we genuinely are competing with the gig economy. And as we know, that's complicated. If you're working in Texas, your servers are making $2.13, right?
It's crazy.
So it's hard to figure out, well, how do I pay them for the day? If they want their hours, but there's taxes, right? So again, I think that wrestling with payroll takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of work, but I do think the direction that we're moving is the direction that we need to go. We got to get more people looking for restaurant work, and we need to be able to pay them faster. And I think that that's really what we're working on doing.
I think you answered the question of how do you retain employees?
Yeah.
You retain employees by taking care of them, by offering them the flexibility. When somebody does ask for time off, not having some rigid standard of saying, like, it's important for people to have a place that they love to go to work, but then also know that that work is also going to support them in their real life when life happens.
And I think that, all of this, it's like being here at RTT, for me as a mission, it's about helping people adopt advanced technology to amplify their humanity, right? And I think when you talk about retention, when I talk retention with people, clients, a lot of times the focus becomes like benefits or health insurance or pay, but realistically speaking, there's a limit to what we can do here.
Absolutely.
And we start to lose sight
of the fundamentals.
Yep. And the fundamentals for me is a few things. One, it's relationships.
Yeah.
RTT, Restaurant 365, it's about giving you tools so that you can automate things that are mundane so that you can build relationships with your team. You want to retain team members? It's not about the extra 50 cents. It's about a real connection.
Yeah.
And the other thing, another item is a mission. There's restaurants here that genuinely have a mission. There's coffee shops that I go into that really are that barista culture where people are proud of the advanced training of their latte art, of their complicated pour overs. There's restaurants that have deep rooted chef roots where you're not teaching somebody to be a cook, you're teaching them to be a chef.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's just so much that can be offered. A mission of farm to table, of really supporting local agriculture, all of these really moving, important things that help us show up to work for reasons other than a paycheck, right? Other than just being able to pay your rent. But the only way that restaurants get there is if we can automate the mundane, if we can get this stuff happening. Because again, it's like what I said when I started Restaurant 365, it was because I had gotten to a place where I was like, all of the human things of why I got into restaurants was being starved by all of these extra pointless steps that wasn't the reason why I was here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think retention really is about relationships and a mission, right? Being able to have something that's bigger, having a purpose for your restaurant. And so many owners, when I talk to an owner about why they got into restaurants, about what lights them up, like you can hear it over the Zoom call, their eyes light up and they're talking about that thing. But if I saw that same operator in the day-to-day, it's likely that person is in the office for 12 hours just trying to do that thing. So I want that sparkle to be something that can infect their employees, that can inspire people, that can get them moving in that direction. They feel like they have a family. And that's another thing. Like, we don't talk about that enough. I miss my regulars. I miss the relationships. I miss my restaurant family because of the diversity, the opportunity, that closeness, right? So I think that getting back to the basics about why people started restaurants, why people work in restaurants, and being able to automate using advanced technology, I think that to me is a path forward.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening, I mean, it's remarkable to see a sold out venue. I mean, literally over 500 people coming from all over the country to this national conference. I know RTT, Restaurant Transformation Tour, they're going to be also in Chicago and New York. So we'll put a link in the bio. But it's very important, if you're listening to this, that you know that you're not alone. It's very hard. And I know as an owner-operator, doing this for 15 years and now have the ability to come and create media content with our partners. We're literally going to be onboarding. We're supposed to be onboarding very soon as Cali Barbecue. So our team is very excited to automate the process and to use all the tools that we talk about. But what's important is to find ways to get out of your business, to get back to that mission statement, to get back to the things that drive you. And the only way to do that is through building a leadership family. And that's the coolest thing about the best technology companies. I mean, what you guys have here, every single person that we interact with on a daily basis now, you guys inspire us, and you keep recruiting the best talent from all over. It's not just in the hospitality field, but for me, that's what's exciting about exactly where we are. That's why we call it digital hospitality. That's why we host clubhouse rooms on Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, please come up on stage and share your story. We will connect you with the right people, people like Leon, people that are on the front lines that can actually help automate your business, move your business forward. So you can find time to come to events like this and, truly build profitable, sustainable, and businesses that we're proud of.
I love that. And I love your idea of that leadership community. I think that it is so important that people know that you're not alone.
We're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We're the worst at asking for help.
Yeah.
My grandfather taught us, stay curious, get involved, ask for help. Curiosity brings you to a podcast. It brings you to a webinar, it brings you to a conference, makes you open up a book, but then you actually have to do something.
Exactly.
You can't just nod your head and go, that's right, but you actually have to do it. And that's a scary step. But then finally it's asking for help. Leon's here. I'm here. You can reach me at Shawn P. Walchef on all the social platforms, weirdly available. Leon, how can people get in touch with you?
Just reaching out to Restaurant 365, right? We have an incredible sales team, an incredible sales engineer team that can walk you through it. And then I'll be excited to be able to work with y'all when you come in and implement the solution. So looking forward to being a part of your leadership community.
Well, if you reach out to me, I'm going to reach out directly to Leon. So everyone in technology tries to give some support. My support is human support. So I know the guy that's going to take care of your answer. Leon's going to be like, why did I do that interview? It's a terrible mistake. Leon, I look forward to working with you, man.
Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Results are in. National Restaurant Association show. Kyle and Sarah and myself, we were at the DAVO sales tax booth, and we were polling restaurant owners on the floor. This was a very unscientific poll, but the results are resounding. Restaurant owners do not like sales tax. Nobody likes sales tax. Doesn't matter what business owner you are, small business, big business. DAVO automates the sales tax process. We are so grateful that DAVO is the sponsor of this show. They automate sales tax at our Cali barbecue restaurants. It is $50 a month. It integrates with all the major point of sale partners, including Toast. So if you want to sleep at night, if you want to not worry about sales tax, go to DAVO, check them out, DAVO Sales Tax. Let us know how they're helping automate your sales tax in your restaurant so that we can share your DAVO story on digital hospitality.